Welcome back to the show. This is your host, David Yanis. We're here at NRB 2014, Midwatch with TV. You're watching us right now. And we are with Mr. Tony Hart. How are you, Tony?
Hi, I'm fine. Glad to be
and
here.
I went out there looking for, I couldn't find an image of him on my papers. Usually I have an image, and I'm like, Who are you waiting for? I appreciate you being on time and everything. We were running a few minutes late and stuff, but he is author of 2 Tablets of Marriage. And I like the thought of this because, you know, the 10 Commandments coming on tablets and That's 2 Tablets of Marriage. We're going to jump into that. But before we do, Tony, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay, I grew up in a Christian home. My father was a pastor and church planter. My grandfather was
So you're a PK like myself.
Yeah, third generation from my grandfather. Started about 20 churches in Jamaica.
Wow, and, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, so my dad grew up in that context, and then after high school he went to Gordon College and started his first church.
So you were in godly homes all your life. So you've seen in action what we're talking about in this book.
Exactly.
And so, and did you pastor or did you?
Oh yeah. So what happened was I didn't answer the call in my life until I was 38 to go into full-time ministry. I'd been preaching since I was a teenager, but I became senior pastor at Monco Bible Fellowship at the age of 38 and 92. So you can do the math. And then I took over as president of the Grand Old Gospel Fellowship in 1998. And the Grand Old Gospel Fellowship is a church planting ministry. So we have 17 churches that we've seen get started. There along the East Coast between Boston and Raleigh, North Carolina. 7 of them in the Philadelphia area.
All right.
And then I pastor one of those churches. And then we syndicate a radio program, the Grand Old Gospel Hour is heard.
And it's about an hour long, your show?
No, the radio program's a half hour weekly.
Oh, and you host it?
Yes. Well, they take my messages from Sunday and put together the radio program.
Oh, wow, that's good. So you're out there doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and then so our mission is threefold: planting churches, preparing leaders, and proclaiming the gospel. So,
I love that. I may have to borrow that.
Well, the preparing leaders piece takes me to developing countries. 3 times a year I go on a mission trip and train pastors.
Wow.
So next month I'll be in Liberia, in Monrovia, training about 300 pastors.
That's really hot ground right now.
Well, it's a lot easier. This is about my 4th time there.
Okay, yeah.
It's getting a lot better than it was.
Yeah, I mean, you start off with like 20 to 50, then you kind of grow from there, and that's good. So you have 300 that you're training there.
Yeah, that's right, at a training conference.
And what other countries do you visit?
We focus on India, Africa, and the Caribbean.
What part of India do you go to?
Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra Pradesh.
Hyderabad,
Andhra Pradesh, yes.
Vijayawada.
Yeah, my mentor in faith was Dr. K.A. Paul, and he was from Andhra Pradesh. I go to just a little bit lower state than you're at right there. I'm in Orissa. That's the hardest place to minister the gospel. I go and hold healing services there. And, but then I have pastors' conferences. I bring pastors along to do that for me. And it's nothing like India, man. It's different. It's different.
Well, we've had some tremendous conferences there in India. And then what we do in all the countries, we ask the pastors, teach them during the daytime, and then have the pastors bring their people out for a big evangelistic outreach.
And usually indoor, right?
No. Well, the conference would be indoor, and then the outside would be in the evening, the preaching the gospel.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you can get some great things. Let's talk about your book.
Okay.
2 Tablets for Your Marriage. Why did you put something like this together? What did you see and you say there's a need for it?
Well, a number of years ago, the Lord gave me insight into how the 10 Commandments applied to marriage. And, the first 4 commandments have to do with our relationship with the Lord, and then the next 6 have to do with our relationship with fellow man. And of course, the most significant relationship we have is with our spouse. And so there's one by one, I saw that there was application for how the marriage should really look. And then I did a little research. I felt for sure that somebody else had made that connection before me. But what I found was that there were a lot of people who had 10 Commandment books, but it wasn't the 10 Commandments. It was like their own list of things. And so here's a biblical approach. It's unique content that goes point by point and shows how the marriage should look in relation to God's moral law.
So what are some of the topics in here that we can expect?
Okay, so I start out with just laying the groundwork first before we even get into the 10 Commandments to talk about the value of the moral law of God. because God's moral law, as reflected in the Ten Commandments, it should be valued, and we should see it God's way as the best way. And in our society today, we have lost sight of the fact that God's way is the best way. And so I bring that out, Psalm 19, when the psalmist says, sweeter than honey, the law of God is more valuable than gold. And we need to recapture that kind of value that we place on God's moral law. And then Jesus took the moral law of God and turned it into not just a list of do's and don'ts, but into a heart condition, so that it's really talking about our hearts and our love for God and our love for our neighbor. And we apply each of those to the various areas of marriage.
What has the response been since you've put this out?
Oh, yeah, it's been tremendous because it's unique material.
Yeah.
And so we have couples that are going chapter by chapter, commandment by commandment, reading it. And there, of course, it creates discussion among couples. Pastors are getting it and using it as a guide to help them with premarital counseling and dealing with married couples as they work through issues. Because rather than all the pop psychology that's out there today, here's a biblical approach that can take them in the Bible, point by point, and deal with a lot of the issues that we need to deal with.
Amen. And you had a book before this, Winning is Everything, correct?
Yeah, Winning is Everything. That came out of a study of the book of Numbers and how the Lord dealt with the nation of Israel through the wilderness journey. And so it's really a victorious Christian living book, that a lot of the principles that the nation of Israel had to learn and deal with apply to us as well.
And Tony Evans wrote the foreword for that one?
Yeah, that's right. Tony Evans, he's been a good friend of our ministry.
That's very good. That's very nice to have that. And he also puts a recommendation to you on this one too. So that's good. That's good. So with this book out and everything, what are you expecting people to get?
I'm expecting them to, first of all, appreciate that marriage is created by God with a theological purpose to be an advertisement of the relationship that we have with the Lord and to experience the oneness that already exists in the Trinity. And so we have a responsibility in our marriages to reflect the relationship that we have with God. So take the first example. For the first commandment says that we're to love God with all of our heart, soul, and mind. Well, if our marriages are to be a reflection of our relationship with God, then it says that we need to also make sure that we love our spouse, that our spouse is in that place of priority in our lives, and that in the same way that we put God first in our lives, we need to have that same kind of priority with our spouse.
Absolutely. I'm opened up to Commandment 8, you shall not steal. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah.
I love this one. I was looking at just the highlights. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, from a practical standpoint, we owe our spouse a lot. First of all, we owe our spouse to keep our vows. And we've made some promises, and to not keep our vows is to steal. And so we owe our spouse that. We owe our spouse to put God first. Because as I just said, the only way we can experience oneness is to meet at the top of the triangle with God and our spouse. And what happens a lot of times is we find ourselves at the bottom of the triangle trying to fix our problems and find oneness along the base of the triangle, and that never works. But as two people pursue their relationship with God and put Him first in their lives and get closer to God, at the top of the triangle, they find themselves getting closer together and experiencing that oneness. And so if marriage is to experience that oneness, then we owe our spouse to pursue God first. Because just having a godly wife, for example, that's pursuing God, and the husband is out doing something else, they'll never experience. We're stealing that opportunity to experience oneness.
And I love this in here. It says you also owe your spouse your affections.
That's right. 1 Corinthians chapter 7.
That's that'll keep a lot of that office stuff at the office and not home.
That's right. And we owe our spouse our resources, our possessions. This idea of what's mine is mine and what's yours.
Oh yeah, let's pay out of your account that. Let's pay out of my account.
We owe our spouse all that we have. And all
absolutely. Tony, thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast. Please give information on your website or how people can contact you.
Yeah, they can contact. Our website is gogf.org. stands for the Grand Old Gospel Fellowship, GOGF.org. All our contact information is there. The book is available at the website. It's available Amazon, Kindle, any Christian bookstore can get it.
And that's again 2 tablets for your marriage, 2 tablets for your marriage, and it's by Tony Hart. And please look for it and get it, because it's something that every house needs to have one of these. And I'm being serious. Every house needs to have this, because it's the 10 commandments of the Bible of marriage. And it's important. God bless you.
God bless
Thanks
you.
again.
Thank you.
And we're back with another great guest.